Yo, welcome to the Mike and Nate show. And we got something for your ass tonight. No, I'm just joking. Kia ora koutou, people. Welcome to South Pacific Muscle. Really excited tonight. And also, at the same hand, I'm feeling very fucking old and ugly right now because we have got the gorgeous Jess Greene joining us all the way from Brisbane. Jess, how are you?
So good. Thank you. So nice to be chatting.
Yeah, it really is, and probably long overdue. Anyway, while we're on the topic of good-looking people, Mike, how are you tonight?
Yeah. Likewise, feeling a bit old and crusty and so on, but that's pretty standard for me. I don't think I've been anything but the oldest person on the podcast for weeks.
Okay,
we have to go out of our way to find someone older than me.
I'll go and hang around some retirement villages and go, would you like to come on the podcast? Yes, we can fit your walking frame in. No. Hey, so tonight we've got Jess Greene. Jess is, 8 days out? 8 days out from the Auckland Champs, which is also obviously the Pro Qualifier for Bikini. So you'll be flying across the ditch very soon, Jess.
Yeah. Borders are finished my last day of work, thank goodness, and then borders opened and I saw the opportunity and just couldn't miss it. So yeah, I fly over on Wednesday, which is super exciting.
So did you start your prep without even knowing you'd be able to get over to the show, or was it just prepping for something?
I've been on prep for years now. I was meant to be I was planning to compete in July of 2020 to do the mid-year shows in Australia, and then obviously COVID happened, and so I started prep for that at the start. The day that we went into lockdown, I pretty much started prep. I had notes from the Saturday, checking with my coach, being like, yep, 15 weeks out, good to go, excited, on track. And then I had the Sunday, it was like, so it just got announced that gyms are closed and we're going into lockdown tomorrow. I'll find a contingency plan and it'll be all sweet. And then I just kept prepping, and July obviously got moved to August, which got moved to September, and then season B got cancelled, and then so I sort of did like a mini reverse, and then came back in and did season A in Australia. So I did the Queensland qualifiers, and then I did nationals, and then I started my reverse diet. I was 5 weeks into my reverse diet, and then the borders opened, and saw that the Auckland Champs was a pro qualifier, and it was in 3 weeks' time. So I rang my coach and was like, well, we're not done. We're not done yet.
Emergency prep.
Yeah, it's like, right, what can we do? Because I'm still, I'm always really committed to sticking to my my reverse diet. It's such an important part. So I hadn't, my body was adapting pretty well to the high calories, and I was still in pretty good condition and still feeling like I had enough energy, and I had one more in me. So I was you can do anything in 3 weeks. So I'm here.
Yeah, you can do a lot in 3 weeks, but she's a long 3 weeks. But it looks like you've come through that pretty well. So I think before we kind of kick on to talking about the Auckland Champs Pro Qualifier, for those that don't know, Jess, based in Brisbane, has been competing both in Australia and New Zealand and internationally. So season A on the Aussie calendar, you did the Queensland and the Nationals, and I believe you won 2 classes at the Nationals. Missed the overall. I think, did Jess get the overall, Jess Johnson? Is that?
Yeah, she did, yeah.
But prior to that, Jess has also been to... we've been Ohio, Arnold's in Ohio. It was 2018, 2019.
Yeah, 2019. So
2019,
2 years ago, yeah.
And you pulled a top 3 at the Ohio. How was that?
Yeah, it was super cool. It was just being in the atmosphere and being in the environment of, the greats, and everyone's there. And I met and, just bumped into Angelica and just bumped into all these amazing people. And to kind of, be able to stand on stage with them. And they had the bikini classes are huge, and there's, 8 or 9 classes with, I think there's 25 in my class. which was just crazy. And then, and kind of the level of the athlete there is really cool. But to get a third was pretty cool, and just to kind of be in the atmosphere. Like there's not heaps in Ohio, but being there for the expo is pretty cool. So it was a good time.
Even hearing you talk about it's made me all excited. I'm like, expos, we want to get the expos.
I know. I want to have people.
There's one in Melbourne though coming up. There's I think it's Fit Fest Australia or Fit Fest Oz. So Tony Doherty's organising that. So that might be for those people that have got withdrawals like me, haven't been to enough expos and shows and things. Maybe that might be worth a bit of a flight across the ditch for. Yeah,
definitely. No, we're lucky. Tony's always putting on a show, and he's always fighting for us. So we're pretty lucky in Australia and New Zealand, to have people like Mo and Tony who just continue to fight for the sport. It's pretty cool.
Mo and Tony both do an incredible amount, and I think Tony has almost sort of established a cult figure about himself now. He's like just one of those people that is, hugely inspirational for a lot of us, and to have that kind of that enthusiasm, and we get it too through in the IFBB, and so do some of the other federations that have just got people at the top that are just driving them passionately and making it more than just turning up to a show. It's something special. And I think you in Aussie, you've got a couple of people in the different states that are like that as well. So very, very lucky.
Yeah. No, it is.
Do you want to give the people a bit of rundown of your history? So maybe kicking off with growing up, what sort of sports you're into, and how you kind of found yourself falling into bikini competition.
Yeah, sure. So I am originally from Christchurch and went to uni in Dunedin, so very, very accustomed to the cold. And
you're in good company here because both of us went to Otago as well. So.
Oh really? Yeah. It was good. I'm not going to move that quickly, but now I'm in Brisbane. I'm acclimatized, but it was I loved it obviously. And then sport wise, I always played lots of sport at school, so netball and basketball and volleyball and things like that, and all through uni played university volleyball and stuff. I'm very short, so I kind of realized pretty quickly that it wasn't really the sport for me, and I always really loved training, and I liked just kind of always wanted to find a sport that aligned to the type of goals that I had, but also that was based on kind of hard work and something that you can't fake. And I just really wanted to find something that kind of aligned to that, and knew that it wasn't going to be a team sport where you needed to be tall, but I knew that I wanted to find of something I could be really passionate about, and started down the path of triathlon, and always laugh because I just don't like running or swimming or biking, but I was like, no, it's a sport that you can just work hard at.
I can see why you would have, when you look at sports, I guess, bodybuilding and bikini, etc., and triathlon, there's a certain type of personality that's drawn to that, and I think it's those people that are really obsessive about performing, and it's almost the lifestyle that sits around it and the amount of training you do, probably quite comparable really in different ways.
Yeah, it was, and it's kind of exactly it. It was like, I want something that I can get passionate about and stuck into, and it's like, it's based on how hard you work, and it's based on that commitment and things like that. And the part that came unstuck, I was like, oh, I kind of just want to go to the gym. Like, where in my triathlon training does like the weights come in? And they were like, no, we just run, bike and swim all day. I was like, so it didn't last that long. So I sort of, and then, through a variety of different people, I was probably quite, I guess coming out of uni or all through uni and school was also probably quite body conscious. And that was definitely like a big driver for me starting off, is that I wasn't super happy. I definitely wasn't happy or comfortable in my body, and I wanted to change the way that I looked and felt. And I liked training, like feeling strong made me feel really good as well. But I definitely, went through that that HIIT stage and the cardio stage, and then went through all the different diets that you could ever imagine and things like that. And so this bodybuilding kind of gave me this tool to learn about my body and how to change the shape of my body and how to change how I look. So it sort of started as I wanted a sport that I could, a passion, I wanted something I could work really hard in, but I also wanted to look a certain way. And it was sort of kind of the perfect opportunity for both. And I sort of, fell into it from there and had to lose a lot of weight for my first comp. I was never like really big, but I was just bigger than what I felt comfortable. And then, just kind of fell into it from there. And I think it's one of those sports, like you do one and you either love it and you're hooked, or you're done. And I was definitely hooked.
I think that point you touched on, and it goes for guys and girls, is that once you realize that you can change the way you look and you've got control of that, it's a pretty empowering kind of tool to have, to go, if I want to look, $1 million and be peeled to bits, I can do that. But right now, I don't need to do it, and I'm quite comfortable in my skin because I know that when I want to, I just flick the switch and it happens. Or if I, with guys who want to get bigger, okay, we'll just flick the switch and we'll eat more food and we'll push more weight and do a lot less around the house, and we'll grow. And like for the average person, I think that to comprehend the fact that you can make a decision, I'm going to change my body, and in 3 months' time have the body that you actually wanted, that would be like a magic pill for most people, to have that power.
Yeah, it's so true. It's just kind of, and it feels like it's so complicated for people, and that people get so overwhelmed by it. And once you learn how to do it, or you learn what works for you, it's so empowering and it's so game changing, and it's possible. Like, that's the thing. If you stick to it, it's possible. It is. It's a big moment to kind of understand.
Yeah, and I think, just drawing parallels between bodybuilding and the bikini classes, it's the kind of thing that, say, for example, 100 meter runners, you are either going to be a really good 100-meter runner or you're not. A guy that's not can never work his way up to being a really top 100-meter runner. But with bodybuilding and bikini, the time frames are obviously different, but most people can create something really special that they can be really proud of, and that can be judged on a bodybuilding stage with a lot of work and dedication. And it's quite, I guess that's probably quite a good thing for those people that are at a starting point, to realize that you might not look anything special at the moment, but if you fast forward 2 years down the track and look back, you'll be absolutely floored at what you can achieve.
Yeah, it's so true. It's kind of, that's what I loved about it. It was like, it's, you're the blank canvas, and it's this amazing opportunity. Like, genetics helps, and it would definitely be fast tracked if you build muscle easily, or you have a great structure already, but you have the ability to change it, and it's just time and commitment, and having the right approach or trainer and nutrition. But it's possible. It's really cool.
Until we get on the big stage, I think, once you start getting on the pro stages, there's a certain amount of thanks you got to give to your parents for the genetics you got, because probably more so
definitely still help.
Yeah, probably more so for you in terms of your classes, because, and I've said this before, and classic would be the same. Like, structure is actually really, really critical at that top end of the game. And whereas with bodybuilding, you might not have great structure, but there's 2 other rounds, stick the most muscle on, get the most peeled, and you've won 2 out of the three criteria. So you might not have a very pretty body, but you could still, kind of get to a reasonably high level. But I think with bikini and classic and figure as well, to actually get to that top level, you've got to have a certain amount of genetic potential to start with.
Yeah, there's definitely that structure. Yeah.
So for women, class selection is perhaps a little more important. If you haven't got the structure for bikini, potentially there's other classes there available for women. I mean, as a bodybuilder, you can kind of look quite different and still be an impressive bodybuilder. If you haven't got the right structure for bikini, then it might be wellness, it might be figure, it might be women's physique. So I mean, for the beginners out there, if you do want to take it all the way, then perhaps looking at your body structure and picking a class and working towards that suits your body structure.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the sport's growing across the federations too, because now you can, what looks the IFBB bikini look compared to the WBFF look is different as well. So there's there is a category for everyone. So it's not only deciding what you like, but also where your body would fit is important as well.
Do you think, I mean, because because the three of us are so immersed in bodybuilding, we're probably pretty au fait with things, but do you think for someone new coming into the sport and going, figure or bikini or wellness or whatever, and having, the WBFF look, the IFBB look, the NABA look, the ICN look, and all in one particular class is really a spectrum of people. And it might be quite confusing as to what classes actually are. So I wonder if there's I know some of the I know the NZIFBB, Mike, I had a look today. They've got their classes on the website, and they've got examples and photos and a bit of a spiel about each of them. So it might be good starting point to have a look at some of the federations, because I guess if you looked at a WBFF figure girl and then she jumped into a NABA comp, the look is completely different. So if if that's the look you're after, and you've also got to consider, I guess, where you can compete, because for us, some of those federations are more so based in Australia. We have the odd show, or have had the odd show, but you want to make sure you're prepping for the right class, I suppose, before you start.
You could look at it completely the other way and just say, go out and create the physique that you love. If you happen to step on the wrong stage in the wrong class, then you'll get the feedback, and then look around for the right class and the right federation. But you got to live in your body. You're the one driving it around. So create something you love rather than sort of fixating on something that's potentially less attainable for you and trying to drive for that.
This is doing my head in, Mike, because I'm sitting here thinking, I know for me, 80 kilos is probably really functional. I can go for a surf. I can work under a car.
But that's not the physique you love.
Yeah, but the physique I love is something that I can never attain, because I want to look like Marcus Rule or Dennis James, with caps out here and kind of like that. But the reality is, it's just not going to happen. So maybe I think my approach is more create the physique that gets the trophy that you're looking for.
External validation rather than intrinsic motivation.
I don't care what I look like. Just give me the trophy.
Just give me the trophy. I think it's understanding that it comes in waves, and you live life in seasons. Like right now, I'm very much focused on creating a body for the stage, and I love the way that looks, because I selectively also. I love the look of the IFBB bikini, so I'm happy that my body looks like an IFBB bikini girl now. But then I know that at another point in my life, I'll be looking slightly different, because my goals will have changed. So it's kind of understanding that at different stages, if you choose to be in this sport and you want to be competitive, then you do need to create a body that is what they're looking for. But at the same time, if it doesn't align with you, and then you have to be okay with that as well, and you have to kind of step to the side and be like, okay, I'm creating the body that I want, or am I creating the body for stage? And it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive.
Sheena Jane talked something very similar. She talked about now that so her focus was on her studies and a few other bits and pieces that she had going on, and that to hold that IFBB pro level bikini body wasn't really sustainable while committing the amount of time and effort and focus into these other things. So I think it's
you have to pick and choose, and you sort of have to know that, to your point, like if you're going to be shredded and lean all year round, or you're going to be like bodybuilding massive, that comes with the cost of, dedicated training, absolute, meticulous nutrition and things like that. And sometimes in your life it's not worth what you have to give up to get to that. And then other times it is,
I heard a really cool term today. It was physical capital, I think it was called. And they were talking about, as an athlete, you have so much of this. You've got X amount, it's a finite amount, and you've got to choose where you expend that energy rather than, trying to push 100% into bodybuilding, 100% into your clients if you're working as a PT or your business or your job, and trying to save for a house or something like that. You'll extend the amount of energy that you've got to, and in each of those areas you will suffer because you won't be performing at your best. So I think you're right. You have to go, it's comp time, it's prep time. I'm creating this physique that is going to put me in contention for a trophy, and these other things can go to the side and they're not going to really happen, but I accept that because it's comp time. Whereas you come out of comp and it's like, right, I've got to play a bit of catch up here. I've got some social engagements, my finances, I better sort those out because, I've done the show, etc. And I think that's about as close to balance as we get as competing bodybuilders. But sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a juggle. It's kind of knowing that, when I'm in this mode, these other things are a little bit, I can give 70% of my time to them or not, and this isn't going to be as much of a priority, but you sort of have to pick and choose. And you try and have as much balance as you can, but it's sort of understanding, how deep in am I going to chuck myself, and what does that mean for everything else. So I think it's important to try and manage. I always try and make sure that I've still got a good balance with relationships and things like that, and friends and family and work and things like that, because you do need stuff outside of, just the sport, but not, other times you're all in all the time.
You were listening to Stan Efferding on Ferd's podcast, weren't you, mate?
Yeah, it was good, really good.
I listened to it myself about an hour ago.
Very good, very good. Hey, Mike, I know you had some questions for Jess about how she progressed in her bodybuilding career, because there was a point that I looked at that there was a real step change in terms of what you were putting out there on stage. So, Michael.
Yeah, I just I saw this really nice post that you put up about your new coach and giving him a lot of credit for the change. So I was really interested in what sort of changes they were and what the sort of big difference was that kind of took your physique, I guess, to the next level, to kind of coin a phrase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think definitely, changing it and working with Nathan has been a really massive step. And I've worked with him now.
Can we just clear up? It's not me. I'm Nathan. Your coach, Nathan Wallace, I believe.
Everybody assumed it wasn't you, man. Everybody assumed it wasn't you. She's got good results.
Why couldn't I prove a bikini girl? Come on, man. No, Nathan Wallace. I just didn't want to.
I'm sure you do a fantastic job, Nate. I'm sure you do a fantastic job.
Look, I possibly would, but and I already have, but I didn't want to steal Nathan Wallace's thunder. Nathan Wallace is Jess's coach. So there you go, guys.
Yeah. He's been my coach for 3 or 4 years now. So since I moved to Brisbane, which has been one of the things that I moved to Brisbane, I was like, I'll see if I can get him to coach me. And he wasn't really taking on new clients. And I said, I promise I'll be the hardest working athlete you ever had. And he was like, oh, right. And so took me on, and
hey, I've got to stop you. I have to stop you and interrupt there, because that is a fantastic story. The fact that you said, here's a coach I want to work with. If I'm in Brisbane, he might work with me. And then hearing he wasn't taking on any clients, you went and begged him and said, hey man, I'll do anything. I will be your number one client. I will do everything you say. And you managed to get him on board as a coach, which was really cool because it really changed things. So it's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, it was awesome. And everyone still thinks I'm nuts. Like he lives down the coast, and I drive for a long time. I was like driving down to see him every few weeks, or most weekends, for as long as I've been here, like an hour down to the coast, which isn't a bad place to drive to either. So it's fine. But think what I learned from him, he is so consistent and dedicated in his approach, and that's just really aligned with me. I'm pretty good at sticking to a plan or being dedicated. But he's also really like logical and calming for someone like me who likes to overthink things. But he really sort of taught me a lot about nutrition, and I'll chat through my training as well. But what I did learn from him is, we track macros, and that's how I kind of learned how to have things. And so he doesn't set me a meal plan. I decide what I want to eat based on macros, but it's so particular, and it's definitely not for everyone, but it's such an important skill to learn, just understanding what you're putting in your body, understanding how different calories and different macronutrients impact your energy and your training and the your body fat and things like that. So he really stripped everything right back, and I just meticulously track my food, particularly now, like when I'm in off season, not as much, but
so
for me that was a big thing.
Prior to working with him, you weren't tracking macros. You were. I mean, what did you work with another coach, and what did your diet look like beforehand? You said you're very you like to be really well planned out and well meticulous. Did you just not have the knowledge before, or was it a different style of training?
A bit of that, like I just didn't have the knowledge, and also I was following a meal plan, but without the knowledge and things like not tracking, not that it's the end of the world, but not tracking things like vegetables, or tracking raw versus cooked weight of proteins and things like that, not tracking certain foods, having like big cheat meals and things like that were untracked, or having refeed days untracked and things like that, which isn't the end of the world, but in sport like this, it really does add up. And there was a lot of times where I just didn't know any different, and it wasn't until I really sort of dialed in on that nutrition that I learned how things play a role. And I was also doing, from my training perspective, I was one of those people who's doing hours and hours of cardio. I was that bikini girl doing 2 hours on the stairs. And we sort of, once I started with Nathan, I started with him in a reverse diet phase. So I started with coming out of a comp, easing out of my calories and things like that. And we've just sort of slowly adapted my metabolism, I think, as well. So because I have been so consistent now for so long, I haven't had these big swings in calories or things like that. My body's just sort of adapted, and I've kind of learnt what works. So I think being with a coach for long enough to do a full reverse diet, a full off season, a full prep, and then the cycle again, we've just kind of learnt what works for my body.
Can I ask a question, because it's something that I'm very passionate about, with particularly female athletes, is that they really focus on that post-comp period and the rebound, etc., and reverse dieting to manage how haywire things can go for girls that come out of a comp who suddenly don't look like they did on stage and are starting to eat things and are getting a bit out of control. And, that can lead to some pretty horrible places. And I think, there's no point hiding the fact that we've created a lot of eating disorders and body disorders in our athletes previously, because there was a lack of awareness of the importance of that post-comp phase. And I think we've probably lost a lot of good athletes from our sport because they couldn't manage it. But I guess now we're kind of a bit more open about these things. We talk about these things, and there is an awareness. So from your perspective, for someone who was going into a first show, what advice would you give them in terms of coming out of the show and some of the things they should consider? And if they don't know enough about, what should they do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's such a valuable point, and it's so hard. And anyone who's done a comp, you've been there, and we've all been there. And I have definitely learnt my lessons in terms of that as well. And you know what it's like, and it's such an awful feeling, and it does I feel like now I'm in a really good space with it, but that's because I've had shows and shows to practice this reverse diet. But I think it's, to your point, being open about it and being aware of it. When I was quite proactively quite educated going into competing, because I was quite nervous to do a show in the first place, because I was probably quite aware in the fact that I knew I did have some challenges around eating, and I didn't want competing to make it worse, and I was quite worried that it was going to really, really mess me up and mess up my relationship with food completely, which it does for a lot of people. So I was quite scared about it. So I did quite a lot of research and sort of knew about this kind of post-comp rebound thing. But even being aware, it's not until you go through it. I still ate everything in sight and then gained heaps of weight, and I was like, shit, what's happened, But I think it's so important to go in and know that, you can have, it's so important to go out for dinner afterwards, and it's important to give yourself that break afterwards. But, let that be a day, or let that be a couple of meals. Don't let it roll into, a week or two, because all of a sudden, your kg's up, and you just feel terrible. And it's, I've sort of learned now, I don't want to put myself into that position where you feel that terrible feeling of, yuck and guilt kind of thing. So it's sort of, taking small steps, and also remembering that, you're in this for the long haul, and this is the body that you have to live in. So you want to treat it with respect. You want to treat it nicely. And it's so important to have those, foods that you've been craving afterwards, but you don't need to eat all of it at once. It's like, I now kind of think, okay, I'm going to have, I sort of plan it for a few weeks out. So I know that during the week, I'm going to stick to my diet, and I'm going to stick to my reverse diet, because I'm at work and nothing fun is happening anyway. It's not like, having chocolate cake for lunch on a Wednesday doesn't achieve anything, but I will save myself and go out for breakfast. The first weekend I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go out for breakfast. Second weekend I might go out for lunch, or go for dinner, or to try a new restaurant. And I sort of break it up. And you're like, okay, if I stick really well to my reverse diet during the week, I'll make sure I can go out for a meal or an occasion that I've been planning, as opposed to just blowing out and letting it extend. It kind of helps keep you accountable. And that's sort of pacing yourself, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, Mike.
From a calorie perspective, what does your reverse look like? I mean, is it up sort of 300 or 400 calories a week coming back out as your weight comes up, or what does it look like from very simple, in very simple terms? I know there's a lot of nuance to it, but
yeah, no, that's cool. It's pretty slow and steady. Sometimes it depends kind of how my body's responded from that week. If it's jumped up quite a lot, then we might make a smaller increase. But I guess probably where Nathan comes in and being so meticulous, he's like, we're going to increase your food a lot. I'm like, oh, sweet. And it's like 10 grams of carbs or something, which is like 80 calories. I'm like, this is bullshit. It's just like an extra piece of sweet potato. It's like, so my reverse is like, when we first come out of a comp, generally we do boost the calories pretty quickly just to get you out of that really low state. But then it's really small increments after that. And I think it would depend on, a bodybuilding guy, you could increase by a lot more. But then my calories get pretty high up, and, towards my off season, I was sort of sitting, 250 grams of carbs a day or whatever, which is, quite a lot for me considering where I've come from. So we just slowly, in a reverse diet, just slowly increase your calories based on how your body responds, really.
Just another good point that I just picked up on there. Most people have that, that concern that they're going to blow right out and go like that. There's others of us that are so strict that we'll just roll out and they'll say, did you get anything? Yeah, I went and had a burger that night and that's it. And we'll be like that. But I think that's also quite a detrimental approach, because what you talked about is sort of the hole we dig ourselves into when we compete, and we're so depleted and so down that by not allowing ourselves some flex and some spikes in calories, by having a couple of meals during that period, it's going to take a heck of a lot longer to rebuild all your glycogen stores, etc., and probably the bunch of trace elements that you've stripped out that you're kind of pretty depleted in. But by having that bit of a, a little bit of freedom in a controlled sort of fashion, you're actually helping yourself get out of a hole. So from a performance perspective, it's probably better to be sitting somewhere in the middle rather than at either extreme.
Yeah, I think, and it's so good mentally. And I always think as well, when you're coming out of a comp, everyone jumps straight into all the treats and things like that. But I also just think if you can make sure that you're getting in your micronutrients too. It's like if you're going to go out for lots of food, at least add some veggies or get an extra side or something like that. But you're right, like you've been so depleted, you do need, your body does need fuel. And I always just think, refuel with good stuff too. You want to fuel mentally, it's a good mental break, and you want to fill your heart as well. Like I just love going out for dinner with my friends and family and not having to stress. And that kind of fills my cup as well. And then you want it obviously to taste nice, but you also want some micronutrients. So it's kind of, you kind of want a bit of everything, but if you go too far and you just eat until you feel sick, you just walk away from it and you don't feel that great.
Probably quite a good rule. If the menu's up above you and it's lit up on a big blow up screen, you're probably in the wrong place. Go do some fine dining and have a nice piece of steak with some nice vegetables and taste $1 million, eat some oysters or something. But I think
go for something you're going to really enjoy.
If it comes out of a vat and it's dripping beef fat, it's probably not that great. Anyway, sorry, Mike, I interrupted you.
No, I was actually interrupting Jess. I think she was rolling on the differences in the training between what she'd done previously and what she was doing with Nathan.
I am. So that nutrition wise, kind of just tracking more accurately. Training wise, my training is pretty standard. It's kind of one of those things that's controversial of like I will go out there and say that I'm a bikini girl and I do have squats and deadlifts in my program. Not all the time, but I do a lot of sumo squat stuff, and I have the functional movements in there as part of the kind of basics for my training. So I always have a functional movement of some, kind of a compound movement of some kind of a squat, and my waist hasn't got ginormous. I do still do a lot of kickbacks and booty things as well, but it's the foundation for my training is like heavy training and really focusing on mind to muscle connection. So it's a lot of really controlled movements. It's a lot of proper technique. I'm quite strong now, but that's by proxy of doing a lot of strength training. Like I don't train like a power lifter, or I'm not training to be the strongest in the gym, but I always and this is probably something I learned from Nathan, is I'll go into like progressively overload. So I always go in, and if my program says 12, and last time I got 12, then I always try and get to 13 with the same sort of technique, where I always go a little bit heavier and just kind of have that mindset. And so my training is pretty, there's only so many ways, I guess, in bikini. It's shoulders and glutes and back. So not so much back now, but yeah.
Do you lead with that heavy compound progressive overload, or do you do the pre-exhaust glutes with sort of butt blasters, bits and pieces, and then go to your heavy compound stuff later?
A bit of both. I generally do at the start. I would do like a squat and a hip thrust generally, or
hey, quick question: how much do you do? What sort of weight are you doing when you're doing your hip thrusts?
At the moment, I've got different days.
Yeah.
If it's a high volume day, I've kind of dropped. Actually, I'm quite weak at the moment because I've been on prep for so long. I feel like I'm slowly getting weaker. But my high volume hip thrust is like 100 kgs, and that's for like 20 reps. And then at the moment, I've got like these pause holds, which are like 160 or something.
That honestly, hand on heart, I truly believe that, and this sort of comes from my powerlifting days as well, but I actually believe on a relative scale that women are a lot stronger through the legs relatively than what men are, because I've seen bikini girls doing hip thrusters with more than I can do, and like I'm 105 kilos or whatever, and an ex-strong man, and I'm looking at these bikini girls going, they are incredibly strong. And so I think one of the myths that sort of people have is or people think is that bikini girls don't have to train hard, but at that top level, I mean, we've spoken to Sheena, we've spoken to Katia, and I know all of those people, Chloe Lynn down here in, I think it's Wellington, but I've watched them train and they're mucking about, man. There's some heavy weights being moved, there are some, they train seriously hard, and I don't think it's probably seen a little bit as an easier class to get into, because probably the time progression to hold the amount of muscle, etc., isn't what it is in say figure or woman's physique. But the top athletes, the top bikini girls, they are strong, they train hard, and they're quite inspiring to watch. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's good. It's pretty satisfying when you're definitely lifting more than the men next to you. And yeah, especially now at the moment when I look pretty little, and I'm definitely lifting like double my weight. I get some pretty funny looks. Pretty satisfying, that's for sure. So I could definitely outlift a few people. And I think it's about not being, it's such a cool message for girls as well, to not be afraid to be strong, and that lifting weights, that old myth of making you bulk. Like I have muscles, but I don't look, big or bulky. I think, I'm pretty little in person. So that kind of being strong and being able to lift double your weight is pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Look, I honestly put it out there that I think any girl that's in the gym smashing weights, like, I'm just super impressed. I'm like, yeah, because there's such a rarity to see a woman that is training really hard. It doesn't necessarily matter about the weight, but they're thrashing it in the gym. You kind of go, wow, kudos to you. Whereas there's a lot more guys training probably at that sort of higher level. But, and occasionally you come across a girl training and you almost stop and my jaw sort of drops, and I'm like, holy shit, look at that. And we had one that used to do her squats, and she'd lie on the gym and have knee wraps everywhere, and she'd have her headphones on and her feet up on the bench. And it was like, holy shit, like, this is her space, man. I'm not even going to walk in there because, she's got all her kit lined up.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I actually was, pleasantly surprised to see, the top bikini girls, their trainings, second to none. Really is.
Yeah, and it's this sport, like, yeah, you can't, it's pretty hard to fake it once you get to, on stage. It's really hard to, if you haven't done the work, it's pretty obvious. So and that's all categories.
Not a lot of places to hide in those little bikinis, I've got to say.
No, there's nothing.
Hey, you said before about training, and it's good lifting, when you're lifting and you look around and, you're lifting more than some of the guys and all the rest of it. I heard James Hollingshead talking the other night, how he was saying that back in the gym, there's people in the gyms for the first week and his deadlift's just gone through the roof. And he said, I know what it is. I actually secretly quite like doing a monster set, knowing that every set of eyes in the gym is watching me, and then I get up and I'm like, yeah, boys, there it is. And and I'm kind of like, I went, fuck, I do that all the time. I kind of love the notoriety of being that person that goes in and does a set that everyone's going, holy shit, some weights just got moved, and and you make a bit of noise and all the rest of it. And it's our little chance to do a bit of a theatrical performance. But I think part of it is that you're actually showing your hard work when you do that. Instead of hiding away quietly and all the rest of it. And it's quite nice. It's good for the ego.
Yeah, it's a bit of an ego boost. That's all right.
So Nathan, cut your cardio a little bit too. Does that apply to prep as well as off season?
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing how your body kind of adapts by really dialing in my nutrition. Like I was saying, I've had preps where I I don't know how I was doing it. I was doing 2 hours a day on the stairs, or I was doing like 50 or 60 minute hit sprints on the treadmill or the air bike. And now I do the other, like this prep coming in, I had two 16-minute sessions. And I think I did, and I thought I was dying. And that was more, I think Nathan just gave it to me just because I kind of mentally was like, I think I should do some cardio now. So it's just, yeah, and when I do it now, I do a lot of hit sessions, and again, it's that same kind of mentality of like come in and he just says sprint on I use the air bike, which is awful, and just says sprint until you feel like you're going to fall off it, and then take a break and then go again. And that's kind of what it is. But yeah, I was doing a lot of cardio. Now I really don't at all. I don't really do any in off season, just purely because my goals are to build muscle. I do miss, like, I really like feeling like fit as well, but I think by proxy, just being strong and in the gym, I'm still pretty fit. And then I keep an eye on my step count or my movement, sort of, just because sometimes I have an office job, and sometimes if I didn't go for a walk or something in the morning, and if I wasn't training, I would hardly even move. So, for me, I like going for a walk along the river in the mornings, just because it's fresh air and things like that, but it's not specifically kind of cardio. And then in this last prep, I've just, we did track my steps. So I track just as another level of, that detail. And towards the end of prep, we did push them up a little bit. It still wasn't as high as what, some people do. It was like keeping it 10,000 generally, and then the last couple of weeks sort of pushed up to like that 12,000 mark, and then I did 2 hit sessions a week for like 2 or 3 weeks maybe. But yeah, and then I just really kind of dialed in my calories and kept an eye on that. So for me, I sort of feel like I do feel like I burn body fat better, or my body functions better with a little bit of hit, just to kind of keep the metabolism moving. I don't know if that's just in my head or if it's a thing, but yeah, I'm definitely not doing the level of cardio that I was in other preps.
Yeah,
so you're obviously still in deficit though, because you're losing body fat. Is that because your metabolism's gone up, or are you eating less food now than you did on previous to working with Nathan?
Yeah, I think probably a bit of both. Like my metabolism's definitely improved. I've got more muscle mass as well, which definitely helps. And then I'm definitely eating. I think I'm definitely eating less, I would say, because I think on my previous meal plans, I wouldn't know what I was eating, because, as I said, there were certain things like that were untracked. So veggies and things were untracked, and so I just I was probably eating like 50 or 60 grams of carbs and green beans or something, where it's just like, just because I didn't know, and there was a whole lot of stuff that was untracked that would have actually equated to a lot of calories. So,
and in that same post that I read about Nathan, you mentioned that you'd convinced him to work with you. Your long-term goal was to maybe get your IFBB Pro card. And we've got you on because Mo suggested you're one of the top runners to potentially get that at the show in 8 days. So now that it's a possibility, or it's sort of that close, is that the long-term goal, or is that just turned into the medium-term goal?
No, yeah, that's always the goal. That's the part one of the goal. Once you get the pro card, you want to compete as a pro. So I'm already planning it. I'm like, so no, for me, and that was for a while I was quite nervous starting bodybuilding, because I'm one of those who, once I'm in, and I'm all in. And I just had this sense when I started the sport, it's like, oh shit, am I gonna do this? Because if I'm in, I'm gonna be in for the long haul. So yeah, my goal's always been to compete and to win. I love traveling, so it's been amazing to be able to do that, and that's what I want to do. So for me, yeah, the goal is to win the pro card, and then after that, then the goal is to have a pro debut, and then the goal is that, you know, travel and do that and the Olympia, and, you know, doesn't stop. So pretty excited.
Yeah, that really is exciting. And I think, you know, a lot of people sort of look at a pro card, you know, and think, oh no, especially for us bodybuilders, you know, you get a pro card and you go from being, you know, the best amateur to by far the worst pro, usually, with most people. And it's just like, oh, okay, it's a long, long road. But, you know, once you're there, and even if you go on stage, and most people, you know, for them and as bodybuilders, probably maybe different for you guys in bikini, but your first one is just about getting on a pro stage and putting the best package up that you can, and the result will be what the result is.
Feeling like you belong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, but once you've got that out of the way, then you know, kind of get that, there's that point of realization that people talk about. And look, I've never experienced this. I'd love to, but I probably never will. But that experience where they go, actually, I'm part of this, and now I'm going to bust my butt to make sure that I'm standing up there and get that first call out, and the game becomes real. And I think
the game's on.
Yeah, you're in, and you're in deep then. But I think the other cool part about that, you know, with getting the pro card, is that, you know, you do have to travel a lot for shows, which, you know, it is very expensive, but you have the best experiences, because all the boys, you know, when they've done like the Toronto Pro, and guys that have gone overseas for the Arnolds, and they come back and they tell these stories about the people they met, the places they stayed at, and where they went, and some of the things they did after the show, and the gyms that they saw. And it's like, that's the best holiday I could ever wish for. You know, yeah, sure, you got to work for it for a year, and you got to prep for 20 weeks, and, you know, spend a lot of money and lose a lot of social contact and do a lot of things get put to the side. But then you get there and you have the, you know, it's a trip of a lifetime, which you get to do over and over again each year when you compete. But you meet all the people that, you know, that you once looked up to and held, and now suddenly they're your peers. I just can't even imagine that. It must be exciting to know that, you know, whether it's at this show or whether it's in a show in the next year or two, at some point you're positioning yourself to move to that lifestyle.
You got to promise you'll come back on and tell us what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that. You can help me do it.
Oh, exciting though, really exciting.
Hey, should we check out the Insta, or should we talk about the podcast?
I think we should jump on. I'll jump on. You can talk about the podcast now, Mike, but I'll just bring up the Insta.
Oh, well, I don't know anything about it. I just jumped on your profile. I saw you had a link to your own podcast, and there was about 6 or 7 episodes on there, about one a month you were putting out. So what's the format for that? Who do you have on? What do you talk about?
Yeah, no, it's so you're putting me under the pump, because it's kind of one of those things that I was like, it has dropped away by the wayside being on prep, and the plan was to you know, reverse that and jump back into the podcast, and then I found another show, so I'm back into it. But I've got a podcast called Grow by Design, and it's sort of sharing my experiences, because I just truly fundamentally believe that, you know, you have the ability to design your life, and you have the ability to design and construct and be anywhere that you want to be. You can achieve anything that you want. You can chase after your dreams. You just have to, you know, have a great plan, have some goals, and then, you know, execute them and follow through on it. And if you stick to it with enough dedication and passion, you know, anything's possible. So that's kind of where Grow by Design came from.
Have you picked it already? Have you picked her future career? I think we've got
the new Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins is exactly what I was going to say.
The dream.
Look, even as a pro bikini athlete, that would be really fantastic to have someone that can speak the way you're speaking, about the ability to have control over your life and what you want to do with your life and how you live your life. I think that would be really empowering for a lot of people out there. So when that happens, just remember to wave out to us and those guys that, you know, no, but it's really cool to hear. Really cool to hear. And so people can catch you on, are you on Apple?
It's right there, man. It's right on the screen. Just click on that. It'll take you there.
Nice.
Apple Podcasts. The link's on Jess's Insta.
Yeah. Podcast and Apple, iTunes, and then also Spotify as well. So I've got some really cool interviews coming up as well. And sort of, chatting through, you know, a variety of different things. Mindset and motivation is obviously a big one for me. I definitely feel like, you know, that's the key that unlocks everything, is if you're in the right mindset, you know, anything's possible. But it's sort of, then there's the ups and downs, and there's the, you're not always winning. So it's, you know, how do you learn from the lessons and things like that? So, you know, there's a bit of a story in terms of how I got to where I am, but also the different mindsets and things that I use day to day in the gym, or, you know, big goals versus daily tasks and stuff like that. So it's just sort of breaking it down, because everyone's got a dream or a big goal, but if you don't actually know how to actually do that, it's always just going to be in the distant future.
Who taught you to you know, unlock that power that you have within yourself to recognize, you know, here's my goal, here's my dream, I've got the power to create and to make myself get there? Who was the person that you were taught that by, or did you see that in someone and sort of take it on board, or is it just something that you always had?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of both. I've definitely always been that kind of type A personality, in terms of like, this is the goal, and so stubborn that until it happens, like nothing, I'm not stopping. And I definitely got the work ethic and the drive from my parents. You know, I've seen them work so hard to create everything that they have, and it just never occurred to me that you would live kind of any other way. But then I've also been really fascinated by you know, just human potential and progression, and so I've read a lot of books and listened to a lot of podcasts and done a lot of self-development courses, but also just, you know, really try to do the work myself, in terms of, you know, being determined to get somewhere and figuring out how to do it. It sort of goes across, you know, career and moving, things like moving to Australia and just putting yourself out there and doing it. And, you know, you definitely have moments where you fail, or where things don't go to plan, and it's sort of about not being totally ruined by it, and learning how to kind of come back from it. So it's sort of been a variety of different people throughout my life, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like there's been a lot of coaching, or you've been around a lot of people that do coach, or, you know, people that you know, lead by example, and you've soaked a lot of that up, because hearing you talk about it, it's really good to be open about it, talk about that, and get people to understand that, you know, if they're in a bad spot or they don't like where they are, only one person going to change that. And okay, easy to say that, probably hard to hear that when you're in a bad place, but if you can, you know, acknowledge the fact that you're in control of your destiny and take control of that, and it might mean that, you know, you move out of your circumstances that you're in, and it might mean that you change countries, change jobs, do whatever you need to do to position yourself in the place to do those things. And so the move over to Aussie and things is obviously somewhat strategic and in your game plan, and certainly, you know, it looks like things are going really well for you at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it sort of came from that, you know, from a pretty low place where I just really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I'd finished uni and, you know, had just left a relationship, and it was kind of one of those things knew that I wasn't completely fulfilled in what I was doing. And then had kind of the world open up, and it was like, well, okay, you can do anything. Like, what are you going to choose? Like, which is exciting and terrifying at the same time. And then, you know, for me, it was kind of really that fear of not doing it. I always think that, you know, when you finally get to that tipping point of like that moment where you realize like, oh shit, this is my life if I don't change it. Like, if I don't do something about it, I'm still going to be here doing the same thing in 2 years' time. And that moment for me was really scary. And that was the moment where it was like, that kind of started to outweigh the fear of the new. So,
and it got you across the line. Got you across the line, and it's been all go since. Hey,
yeah.
For those people that aren't following Jess already, get on there. Jess Greene 1. There you go, got that out finally.
Yeah.
Jess Greene 1. Tons of photos on there, lots of competition pics, etc. How far out are we in this one?
That was meant to be my 4 weeks reverse, which was 4 weeks reverse, but then it was probably 4 weeks out. I think this has been the best and weirdest prep. Who has a 5 week reverse in the middle of their prep? It's working. It's working.
Oh, God.
Better than a 5 week blowout, isn't it?
Exactly.
No chance of competing.
No chance. So, really, really excited, and just feels like it's such a cool opportunity. I love competing in New Zealand, and it's so nice to be able to come home, and it's where it all started for me. My first show was the Wellington Champs, and then the Auckland Champs and the Pro-Am and stuff like that. So it's so awesome to be back on stage in New Zealand. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Is this one, just while I got this photo up, is this from the Nationals?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so this is Nationals a few weeks ago.
Standard's pretty high over there, I've got to say.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's Australia there are so many amazing competitors, and it's just growing. The sport just continues to grow. Lots of really competitive athletes.
How many were there in
Pretty
your
cool.
class?
I think there was 16 or 17. So it's definitely a competitive lineup, that's for sure. It's a great we're really lucky with Tony always puts on a great show. Up in Queensland, John Davies is a big part of the federation up here too, which is pretty cool.
He beat you across the ditch, by the way. I think he's the first bodybuilder to hit the travel bubble.
I was gonna say
he's floating around in Tauranga. He's in Tauranga at the moment.
Is
so
he?
yeah. Hey, that's a decent bit of gold that you got to take home with you there.
I know. I was going to say Australia does do big medals.
Pretty impressed.
Gonna have to see if Mo's got something like that.
If I ever won that, I'd get it put on a Del Monte chain and I'd wear it when I went out.
A Flavor Flav.
Yeah,
mate. Absolutely. Oh, it's gold. Right. So what are we now? 8 days out. Game plan for this week. Anything interesting to talk about this week, and perhaps your travel?
Yeah, we I'm kind of depleting a little bit more at the moment. We reduced my calories a little bit the last few days, and then I did some cardio this week. I said to Nathan, it's like shit. Maybe we should do something because it's been a while. And then I'm catching up with him on the Sunday, and we'll just start carb loading from there. So my thing is I'm probably pretty lean now, and I've it takes a while for my body to really fill out. So I just start carb loading kind of from now. We'll slowly increase my calories, and hopefully just kind of fill up into the show, and then have it maybe a few days just before where I drop them back down, just to kind of push all of the glycogen into muscles, and then jump on a plane on Wednesday, and I'll probably train. I generally train and not the way up, but train still pretty hard this week, and then start to reduce it from sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, and then chill on Thursday and Friday, just rest, get a tan,
game on,
catch up with the family, and then then it's game on.
You got family in Auckland, or are they flying up from Christchurch, or what's the go?
Family is my brother and his wife live in Auckland, so I'll see them, and then everyone else is actually busy. So the timing aligned amazingly for me to be there, and everyone else was first week of May. Everyone's at duck shooting, so
that's a bit of a peek into your family life there. When we duck shooting, everyone knows 1st of May is duck shooting.
I know.
We get it up here. Like honestly, we'll have Premier Rugby, and half the team will turn up, and a Prem team will pull out because the boys have gone duck shooting, and it's like duck shooting's life. So hey,
I know. It's like, what do you mean? So I'll see them on Wednesday, Thursday, and then it'll be just me. But that's also, I'm coming back in June to see the family, which will be really nice. It's hard to I'd love to have their support. I know they'll be there in spirit, and I've got some friends who will be there and things. But yeah, when I come back in June, it'll be all about the food and the wine and dine and just sit and watch the rugby and be inside. So, you know, I'll do both.
No, that's awesome to hear. Hey, just before we go, we always give opportunity to people that come on our show to do a big shout out to anyone that, you know, is special to them, that has helped them along the way, supporting them, or just friends and family. And so the floor is yours.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I think my big shout out to my obviously Nathan, I've mentioned a lot. Yeah, all my friends and family. I have probably just never felt so supported as I do right now, which is really, really exciting. Really thankful for Mo and Tony, obviously, for giving us the opportunity to compete as bodybuilders, even in this crazy COVID world. And yeah, appreciate you guys for having me on, and I'm really excited to be in New Zealand. And yeah, big shout out to everyone who's loving and supporting it. I feel like I've had so many nice comments being sent my way in the last couple of weeks and months, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you, and can't wait to see you on stage. I will be there, and I'm sure almost everyone from bodybuilding circles in Auckland will be there supporting it. So those people, if you're in Auckland May 1st, if you're not into jiu-jitsu because the nationals are on that day, then you better be at the bodybuilding. So look forward to catching up with everyone there. And again, thank you, Jess, for coming on. And to everyone out there, stay safe. Have a great week. Catch you later.